Hillsborough. Present. Daly City,
Glenn Sylvester present.
San Bruno,
Rico Medina present.
County of San Mateo.
Shruti Thakurkar present.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 2, public comments or correspondence announcements. For items not on the agenda.
Public comment is reserved for persons wishing to address the Finance Committee on any Emergency Services Council related matters that are not otherwise on this meeting agenda. Do we have anybody on
There are
Zoom?
no members of the public.
Thank you. With that, we will go to item 3, which is action to set agenda and approve consent agenda items. Is there any comments, questions, or action by the committee?
It's the agenda on page 2. That or this, oh, this one.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Set the, yes, set this agenda and approve the consent items.
So I move to approve the consent agenda items.
Glenn Sylvester, I'll second. There's been a motion and a second to approve item 3. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. We'll move on to item 4. Joint exercise of power agreement update, please.
Council, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. One of the things that the previous director was trying to do is update the joint exercise of powers agreement that is basis for this council. There was, the last update was from October of 2014, which still had the sheriff's office and some outdated language in it. So what we have done is we have taken a moment and revised it to reflect the current Department of Emergency Management. And in your packet, page 6, you will see a copy of the entire agreement. Anywhere there is, it's highlighted green, are the new changes that are not related to nomenclature or updates of like DEM versus Office of Emergency Services. So I'd like to actually walk through this with you all, starting with page 6. On page 6, you all will see that there is some language that specifically says what the Emergency Services Council is. That was not really defined in the previous. We call ourselves the Emergency Services Council, so it was important for us to put that in. The 2 languages that are whereas languages, those were put in again to say unified emergency services, and the second green item there basically talks about all phases of emergency management. And the last green item on that page specifically says planning to respect of to all phases of emergency management cycle, including preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. So moving away from a response focus. I'd like to.
And the intent is to provide sort of a uniform structure so that it's applicable whether it was a city or then it was expanded to the county-wide or several cities right?
Yes, thank you. And that is what you will see in on page 7, under 1.04, the green, where it says DEM will establish standards for emergency management practices within the San Mateo County operational area, which member agencies in the organizations will follow. And then there's a small addition of city and towns. Page 6 and 7, are there any questions, and do we want a minute to read through them?
My colleagues on pages 6 and 7. Okay.
Yes.
Anything? Okay. We're good. Please proceed.
Page 8, under 2.04, we have added that regular meetings are set, at least 4 meetings in 1 calendar year, and then that the chair, vice chair, or the DEM director can cancel the meetings for extenuating circumstances or lack of agenda items. And then agenda setting shall be set by the chair, vice chair, and the DEM director. So not significant changes. Page 9, participating agencies. This had a list of participating agencies, which included specifically calling out Port Authority, PG&E, but it limited it to like 6 or 7 participating agencies. This language actually opens it up to all utilities, not just PG&E. Profit schools, whoever the ESC wants to approve as a participating agency, they would not have a vote. However, they could be part of the meeting and have discussion. So that's been a shift.
So are they similar to what Red Cross will be participating or representing in that way? Or is it more that, is it at their choice that they want to engage just on the regular meetings? But in terms of the operations, you definitely will reach out to them because it is in the periphery of what this.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so basically they could sit on the council and not have a vote. Where they would get them agenda items and where they would have the same privileges as, or
More
they wouldn't
access.
necessarily authorities that the cities have, but more of a privilege to be on the council, but not have the authorities of the member agencies.
Because I want to say it's more of an access to be able to reach out to you and your staff, to be able to address some of the concerns, if there's any, to the council, not necessarily voting on it.
Yeah.
But definitely have, to be able to share their perspectives.
Access, yes.
And not that we have folks, but let's just say, because we're talking about schools, colleges, so let's say all of a sudden you've got the 3 colleges, community colleges, they wanna each have somebody, and now we have how many school districts? We start saying the high school.
26.
So you have 6, you have 10 schools within San Mateo Union High School District. So where does that stop? I'm not saying they're going to, but I'm just saying what then happens if everybody said, you know what, might be worth our value to have somebody show up or be a part of the group.
And then it says I think it says the written request for participation go to the ESC and the chair. So if you say, you all need to pick a representative of
From the district.
Of all schools, that's who we would allow to participate rather than, 26 different districts. I think you have the authority to manage that.
Yeah, just so there's still efficiency by the board that conduct business.
Yeah.
And based on your comment, we could just strike the schools, the entire thing, and just say participating partners, representatives. Instead of saying following organization, we could just say, organizations can be part and not really call them out.
Yeah, I think that the sort of the discussion, the way that it's being phrased seems like that there are many potential participants. But they are limited in that, so that we're not in the silo, which is what we're interested in, is that we're not in the silo. We want to have as many sort of stakeholders out there that are aware of what we're doing and, making comments or suggestions if there's anything concerned in particular to their entities. I think that's what we're looking at, right?
Yeah.
So, so when we're saying that the participating I mean, I appreciate the fact that on the second paragraph, it says written request, but I think the first part about opening up to the aspect of, it seems vast. And so, you know, for the outside entities, we want to be inviting, but at the same time, there's a limited scope as to what we're hoping to get on this.
Yeah, maybe it would help to put some language at the front that says, you know, to the extent the ESC committee determines it would be beneficial to the operations of the committee and emergency preparedness, they can consider allowing partners of this type to participate in the ESC meetings. You might just put front that language so that it's clear to everybody that how many participants there are, how much they participate will sort of be up to the council.
Yeah, I think that would be right.
I agree.
Better. I mean, not that we're gonna have a swarm of.
Yeah, we're not, but
Yeah.
I think it is very vast, and I was just thinking if there was some value for trades to be here, or not saying there's not, but what if there's specific topics of interest?
Yeah.
When we're making purchases or whatever we're doing, so but I think Adam is or the county.
Yeah.
Suggestion is a good one. Glenn, what do you? Mr. President.
Both sides. They say there's a saying, too many hands in the pot spoils the soup. And yet on the other hand, I can see if we don't know, we need to give folks a mechanism to participate in the sense, they may have some ideas that we're not even thinking of. And I think that's a very good part. So it says it may be submitted to the chair. What are the requirements, if any? If an agency comes in and say, we want to participate and be part of the working group, who's to say they cannot? What would be the requirements?
I mean, based on, if it was a no or a yes, based on what? Just wait.
Yeah, have we defined those requirements or anything? I want the participation. I definitely want it, but I'm just hoping it doesn't get too unwieldy, like there's what, 8, 10 of us here in the room now? And when we have a meeting, we'll have 25, 30, and where do we go?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's an excellent idea for participation to hear from them. And then, Mr. Chair, you said the trades. I will tell you that at council meetings, anytime there's a development, the trades show up and say, we want to be a part of this, and we hope you would vote as such to include us. And I think, I'm sure we're going to have some developments coming later on, and I'm sure they will be here. They will be here if they find out you're building something. So how does that work?
No, I think that there are two different things. I
Okay.
hear what you're saying. I think that this is the bylaw that we're working on.
Okay.
And so the bylaw is much more leaner in that sense, right? You know,
Okay.
it's much more succinct as to the intent of the purpose. The idea, which I think that this, you know, the departments and the DEM and also the ESC are interested is, we do realize that there are stakeholders out there. We don't want to limit them, and we will continue to encourage for their participation. So I think in the language is sort of set in our mind, the back of the idea is that we want to be inclusive, but to a certain extent, for this organization to be efficient, we need to have a core group to make the decisions. We want the inputs from the at large,
Like it.
right? We want the at large input, but we want the core group to make the decisions.
I get it. I like it. Good answer. Okay.
I think we got good feedback that we can take to grab some language.
Yes. I like it.
Do we also want language for termination here?
I would say that you can embed language, this would be up to you all, but you could embed language that says they can act as participating partners to the extent and for the duration the Emergency Services Council deems it beneficial and efficient and such. So I think there's language we could embed in there that continues to give you all the authority to manage it, so it doesn't get out of hand.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And also, there are opportunities, and I can see that the ad hoc, or from other trainings that you see, you find stakeholders who will be interested and be productive in terms of adding values to it, right? It just in terms of bylaw, I don't think that we want to be sort of open-ended that end up having have to backtrack as to how we're gonna operate.
Great, thank you. So the auditor and fiscal accountability, this entire section is new. And the reason this section exists is because, technically, we're a special district. The ESC is a special district. However, we fall under the Joint Powers, Act. So don't have the same, abilities as a special districts.
It's a little bit confusing. What happened is, this is JPAs and special districts are distinct entities. And what the controller did, the California State Controller did, was deem the JPA a special district, but only for financial reporting purposes, right? So that's what this is all about. And you know what, I can even put some language in there to make that clear.
Right.
Deemed a special district for financial reporting for financial reporting purposes. And then, everything else in here is just straight from the government code, which talks about the reports that need to be submitted in the event that the controller, determines that something is false, incomplete, or incorrect. They can launch an investigation. ESC would have to fit the bill for that. And then the last piece is regarding audits. So kind of three components, but straight from the government code, and really just because the controller has said that the JPA will be subject to kind of special district reporting requirements.
I think your added verbiage is good because once again, if when a new person comes on, this is something that can happen. It makes sense as to why.
I'm just gonna give everyone a minute to read the legalese on that.
So that would requires this JPA in the budget items to have the audit line items, right?
So, we were deemed, I think since 2015, we have been doing the audits and they've had no findings. I'm not sure if we've actually given the ESC JPA a copy of the audits. But we can make that part of the schedule. Like, because we
Right.
have to do it.
Right, because I think that just annually, all the cities gets their audit report update and their
Yeah.
budget on a separate part of the meeting, so. Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember. We're gonna go to page 11. So under C, we have added VM may host SMC OA communication infrastructure, such as system-wide applications or platforms. So we do a lot of communications type stuff. So we have all alert and warning communications, whether that is the tsunami sirens, virtual EOC, Zone Haven, which is now called Genesis Protect, Rave. So that's what that's supposed to imply. H says, function as a liaison between Cal OES and FEMA as an operational area. That is one of our duties to do. Provide some guidance with recovery efforts. And then resource management, again, it is one of our duties as an operational area to, if we can't procure it locally, to send it up to the state. So that is what that is referring to.
So that means the local agency, the cities, will go to you for training in terms of filing the FEMA reports and all these other stuff, or with your assistance and guidance and into, because sometimes it could be draconian, right? You have to make sure that all the, done.
So we, basically, the way it works is FEMA doesn't recognize anything smaller than the operational area, which is the county, so we have to be part of that process. We will be bringing in trainings for disaster recovery and set up the process. So it's more streamlined. We have assisted in past, like just this year, Pacifica and their recovery efforts. After they declared a state of emergency, I think they got some amount of funding, not sure exactly how much. Page 12, we have added this language that population figures will be based on the census and will be updated at minimum every 10 years. Previously, it said that the population figures will be agreed upon by the ESC. So we have changed that language. And then we have added language at the bottom about the finance committee, that the standing committee is responsible for administrative and financial recommendations. It will be consisting of a chair, vice chair, and representatives chosen by the ESC, and will be limited to 5 members.
The 5 members will be from the ESC, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And we can clarify that language. And then the organization will maintain 5,000, 500,000 in the trust fund with a maximum of 1.5 million. The policy can be reviewed and updated. I wanted to formalize, wanted to memorialize the things we've done. And then all ESC, the ESC must approve all trust fund expenditures.
Question,
Yeah,
can we go back to D?
yeah.
Do we think 10 years is too big of a gap? If the population changes?
No,
No,
because it's census.
I'm sorry.
Census is conducted every 10 years. Otherwise, it will be,
Right.
how many babies are in Dundee City?
Exactly. We no longer.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Doing the bragging right.
Okay. Thank you.
And that is all the significant changes. We did make some additions to the common terminology annex, which just is definitions of what. This used to be this common terminology annex, page 17 used to be part of the agreement. It was just too much, so we've just taken it out and we've added things that we think would be relevant to have in there.
So I'm assuming that in the all hazards that include the technological. Does that include cybersecurity? Yes.
Any other? Yeah, please.
Have we defined the term to be a part of this committee? I don't.
To my memory, I say no.
Okay, because, give you an example, for instance, mosquito abatement. I think it's a 2-year term that it has to be approved by the council to continue on. Do we have that?
Term limits.
No, not limit, but being a part of the committee.
The finance committee or the ESC,
Finance.
the finance committee.
No, well, I would think the finance committee is part of the ESC, being part of ESC.
So you have to be a ESC members, right? You'll have to be appointed by your city to serve on this, the board, right?
Right,
And then from the board, we'll select the members to serve on the finance.
finance committee,
Mhm.
right, okay. All right, so how often is that done by the council or the various councils to be part of the ESC? Anybody know?
Is it annually? It depends on, I think this group would defer to the term limits that are established by all the membership agencies. So if your city had you could serve for 40 years as a council member, you would be welcome at the ESC for 40 years. If yours only allowed one term of 4 years, then that would be the term limit. So I think that probably is, we're sort of agnostic as to who is selected and how they're selected. You guys know better than me how your committee assignments are done, whether they're annual or.
I would say for this, it was getting it established. It didn't exist before. Remember, it was kind of
Right.
finance and then there was the admin, and so then it became one, simplified.
So it would behoove me to try to remain here on ESC.
Well, I see what you're saying. So if you were not the Daly City's representative, no, you wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
Correct.
Okay.
So if your mayor rotated you out, I mean, I think that's how Daly City did it.
Mhm.
For me, the mayor makes the recommendation and it's solidified by the council.
That's what I'm saying.
But if November's not good for me, then I would not be here.
Mistake. All right, well, 2 points. I hate to leave you, Rico. I wish I got started 40 years ago. But I do,
But to Glenn's point, I think that what you're getting at, if I understand it, is that within so there's the structures of the supervisors being the chair. And then among the elected, the remaining board, we selected the vice chair, right?
right,
And so to your point and then we also selected the up to the 5 members to be sitting on this finance committee. And to what extent do we want a rotation of that? I think that was, I mean, I'm taking that's what you're driving at, is there a language in here that stipulate that annually we're gonna review it? Now, the supervisors' positions, it depends on their rotation and
absolutely.
their appointments, right?
absolutely.
So that is a given, but for the rest of the committee or the board, shall we say, is there a sort of annually, do we want to have
Mhm.
a review of, say, Rico currently is the vice chair, and does he, is he interested in continue on? That's one, and then is there an interest of setting a time schedule so that the rest of the board would say, hey, it's time for review. And I think that might be something that we want to kind of look at, to say we want to, because I mean, one of the discussion is about the continuities. Even for the board representations from each city,
Mhm.
it's always helpful, and we all sent in through so many JPA. It's very helpful when you have a board sort of staggered with it in the experience. It helps with the discussion, right? And it makes it easier for the staff to ask questions and get directions. When you have a brand new board that have no experience in this particular subject matters, it makes it difficult for the overall operation to get on, get to speed and get working. So there's value in, do we want to discuss that? And it may be just for review only, it doesn't have to be, but there are going to come times when, you know, say that Rico retires and then,
Not too soon.
no, not too soon.
Thank you.
Another 40
But
years.
it's all
Another
hypothetical.
couple of years.
Yeah, 40 years.
No.
Through the chair,
Yeah.
I seem to remember when we were discussing having the finance committee and doing away with the admin group,
Mhm.
this discussion. And I would have to go back and look at my notes in the minutes. But I think we did discuss one of the first meetings. We discussed how long everybody would sit on the committee. I don't know if any of you remember that.
I do remember we had discussions.
I don't,
I don't know if we land on some kind of.
Yeah.
You know, sort of a, whether we want to do an annual, evaluations or there's going to come time where there's rotation, whether through elections or through retirements. That's a given, or through the mayor's assignments.
but we could look at the minutes and
But
see
I
what
think
the
it would be
discussion
helpful
was.
and,
Yeah.
and I think in general, we all feel that when there are assignments done by the mayors, especially in JPA like this one,
Mhm.
or some others like CCAG, for examples,
Mhm.
we usually would recommend the mayors to stay with their appointment so that there's continuity. And it's better for the entire region in terms of discussions. So we tend to do that. But it's not something that is, kind of memorialized. It's more of, it's a recommendation, highly recommended to the mayors to say that, if you have Glenn and he's representing your city well, we would like to keep him on the ESC, if that is the case.
Well, if I may add, what toggled me to ask that question, I heard the term today called special district. And there is a ruling and some sort of ordinance that I went through. Because say, for instance, the mosquito vector control district, that is a special district and it's a JPA. And once your council comes together and say, appoint you, they send a letter and the district checks, who's up based upon their term. Like it could be a 2-year term or a 3-year term. When that term is ending, they will send a reminder, similar to Council of Cities, will send a reminder and say the following positions are coming up. But instead, what the Mosquito Vector Control District does, they send a reminder and says, your current representative's term is expiring this coming, say, December. So that prompts the council to prepare and have a discussion if someone is to remain or not remain. And what has happened, and I'm taking this from experience. I have a particular person when he was the mayor, he's gone now, and to be, I say, vindictive, to change, he just made the assignment and took me off of the Mosquito Vector Control District. Until I found that specific ordinance, all special districts serve until their time is come to termination. And I can look it up and help provide that information. So when I heard special district, that toggled me, and that's why I'm posing the question,
Yeah,
how long?
But the distinction here would be that, here's the thing, JPA is a separate entity.
Yes.
Special districts, but a special district can be a member of a JPA. I don't know if that,
No.
but they're not the same
Well,
thing.
and on your example of mosquito abatement, like, we don't have an elected that sits on. We have a resident.
Yeah, okay,
So
Right.
it is not unless a council member wishes, but
okay,
in this case, it's Robert.
right.
And he sits on and it's for so many years. And then we get a note that says, okay, council, you need to decide, do you want Mr. Record to continue, or are we replacing him, or is he not interested any longer?
Right.
But so to me, that's a different board where this one is specific, you need to be an elected.
I get it, no problem. I'm just looking at the term and if they try to get rid of you, do we have something in writing? No, you can get rid of him next year.
I mean, it does kind of leave it to the discretion of the mayor.
It is a JPA and it is appointed by, well, the appointments are made by the mayors. And with a caveat that usually the mayor would, converse with the representatives and says, are you interested in your assignments? Do you find this to be beneficial, for your service and that kind of.
And I think to your point, and your point, the historical perspective, I think is important. And I mean, because I can look around this table of who's new per se within the last couple of years. And I think we add a lot of the value that has that or walked it. And I think that's important because on some JPAs, the ones you and I serve on, like for the advanced life support, it rotates a lot.
Yeah.
And for me, for San Bruno with CCAG, Michael Salazar, I've kept him in that and not because he's there. He's now the vice chair, he's on the ledge committee, and so he's adding more and more value. So why would I want to replace him unless he's no longer satisfied? So I would hope mayors take that into account.
Well, I appreciate that, and I will be frank and say, I think the only reason why I am here, because of based upon valuable knowledge that I could probably impart based upon what I did before in my previous career, and Marie and Rico knows that. And not to say I want to leave, I mean, I love you folks. But, but we never know, and I just. Thank you.
So is that something that, from the legal perspectives that you want to kind of,
We can chew on that.
kind of see, yeah, you can see the discussion that there's values of, the keeping the status quo and then, when the situation arises. But then there's also, since that we're making the revisions anyway, to see if it makes sense or not to have that embedded in the language.
Because I think too is that when we first started to form this, there weren't a lot of hands. There's that thing. I said, you're coming down to Redwood City now, it's not virtual anymore. And so you have to come here and you have the furthest drive today.
Well, if it wasn't for Rosalinda, I wouldn't have been here. But
Good work. Save the meeting.
I know, otherwise we have no quorum.
I didn't mean to cut you off. sir,
No,
but
no.
I think that it would be appropriate somewhere under governance, paragraph 2.01, maybe fit it in there some way, shape. It doesn't want when it says the mayor reads the or the designated representative.
No, pretty sure this language comes straight out of ordinance. Though.
Okay, oh, I see, okay, all right.
Yeah,
But I think it would be helpful to your point, you can go back to the minutes and to see if there was a discussions, or maybe the discussion was just a discussion for the sake of it. And then at the end of the day, people go, well, because I remember we had that discussion.
And I do have my notes from back then, so I'll look.
Thank you. I just don't know where we landed on.
Is there anything else on the document?
Nope.
And when would you
So,
want to bring this forward and it all obviously needs to go to one of the jurisdictions?
yes, so the idea is to bring it to the September meeting. We can have the revisions done in the next week, send it to you all. We can definitely look at the minutes. We've actually looked at documents from the 1960s. We've looked at every single document that has, to codify things that need to be codified. So we've done our due diligence. We'll look at the finance committee meeting and we'll let you know. And is it okay if we do it? I send it to all of you and.
Absolutely.
I do want your opinion on page 5. We're gonna go backwards.
Oh, okay, we're
Yeah.
still in the document.
This is a sample, basically staff memo that you all could take to your cities or towns, would want input of what would be beneficial for you to brief the city attorney on, or the city council, or the city manager on.
You said, the last line, we recommend that the city or towns may approve newly drafted agreement. Recommending is just a suggestion to me.
Okay.
And I'm asking staff too, but wouldn't it be, they basically have to approve this? Because if they don't approve it, then they can't be a part of the JPA. Would be, so I'm not trying to use harsher language, but I think it needs to be understood. It's like, oh, well, we don't have to get to this, or it's not a priority right now, but
We just say we request. Right,
however, yeah.
Yeah.
just-
so that the ESC JPA can continue functioning, we request that you. approve
but
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
So is this gonna go out to all the cities
Yes,
before?
after.
After we meet in
After we
September.
met, after we meet in September, and if, like, the board has more comments or whatnot, and that deem appropriate, then, then the last revision will be sent to all.
Well, that kind of brought me to another question. The final question that I have, or basically a comment. Until, I think it was an excellent idea that you had us go back to page 5. My final question is, what precipitated all these changes in the first place?
A couple of things. One, it hadn't changed since October of
2014.
that had the sheriff's office and OES. And that is, and then the language for the state calling us a special district
Okay.
for the financial purposes, that language was not also there. And
Okay.
those are the two important things, from like a legalese perspective. The non-legalese perspective is that we are going to be more of all phases of emergency management and not just a response agent, not just a response entity. So that's more of an operations perspective.
Okay, well, what I was going to say, and good answer, by the way, excellent job. You might think I try to be a little bit difficult, but I have a reason for certain things. I don't know, I want to say, everything you've said, outstanding job by you and your staff.
Thank
Putting
you.
this together. And the
It's
work
not,
that
it's
was
not
done.
a small undertaking.
Thank
And
you.
same with the finance, to put out those items and then to make sense out of it. From the sheriff's accounting, and to now update this is critical.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, so we'll try, yeah.
One suggestion you might, for this letter is you might include, that, the Emergency Services Council, with participation from your representative, has reviewed and approved this, attached draft, and we ask that you execute it so that we can continue operating, something like that, so that you show that it has the approval of their designated
Right,
representative.
it's being reviewed,
Yeah,
rather than we're asking them for any kind of comments or feedback.
That's a good point. We're not asking them to wordsmith it. We're asking them that this already has been done by the agency or the department, the JPA. And so, yes, we're just asking them to ratify.
And then maybe at our board meetings, at the end of the chairs can preface this by saying, now that we have this discussion, the intent is to send it to the prospective cities for review. And, it would be helpful for you to lend that perspective should your city has any questions.
Great.
Anything else on item 4? Okay, let's move on to, yes.
We call for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
members of the public.
Seeing none, we can
Thank you. I'm operated that if there's an action that I need to ask for public, but this was an informational to me, but okay. It's better to be safe. Item 5, all hazards countywide evacuation plan update.
So we were working with a contractor, to do the all hazard countywide evacuation plan. In the last, month or so, we have separated with the contractor. We've decided to bring the work in-house. We've already met with, Brian Kelly, who's the fire chief, who's the subject matter expertise, and the project manager for it, and have scoped out a scope of work, and we're moving that along. Wanted to let you know that since we have brought it in-house, we will not be taking all the monies out of the trust fund, the 375, it will be less. Once we figure out how much we owe the contractor, I will provide an update to this committee.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing, hearing none, public.
Public comment?
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 6, roundtable. Does anybody have any comments or questions, statements, words of advice, wisdom?
Jokes.
Well, again, I wish to express my appreciations for your leadership, for the teamwork. I think that it is critical that we make this as an entity, which, the three of us sit on this committee for a long time, and then, we realize that it's a big effort, for you to put out those line items to make the budget sound, and now the, bylaw sound, so appreciate that. Thank you.
Anything from you, Glenn? No, sir. Okay, nothing for myself to report. Next we'll, okay, we're good. Okay. Next, next Emergency Services Council meeting will be held January 30th, believe it or not, 2025 at 4 o'clock, prior to our regular meeting.
I think that is an error.
Yeah,
I hope so.
because we're 5:30.
Yeah.
However,
So-
4 o'clock is being invited for folks.
So that's the ESC Finance Committee meeting. Not the regular
Okay.
ESC. Yeah, and apologies for that.
No
error.
worries. Okay. With that, if there's nothing else, we will go ahead and adjourn, just for the record, under an hour. We did better than that. So, thank you very much for everybody, staff.
Thank
Thank
you.
Enjoy your evening.
Meeting is adjourned at 4:49.